Hello, my name is Saulo Ruiz, and this presentation is about assembled feature selection for credit scoring in microfinance with non-traditional features. This presentation is intended for the 23rd International Conference on Discovery Science. The outline of the presentation will start with the introduction, discussing the problem overview, going then to the related works to see the current stage of credit scoring in microfinance. Later on, we will see the dataset description and feature selection, as well as the sources of the features. We will then go to the experimentation methodology and key results, finalizing with the conclusion and future works. We can summarize our problem as a classification problem. We need to select relevant features to train a credit scoring algorithm for a microfinance institution. The problem is that microfinance institutions do not have access to financial data. There is no credit bureau. Even if they have access, their base or the target audience do not have historic financial data. With the rise of technology, MFIs have relied into online forms and device logs information. This means even if they cannot get financial information, they will get at least behavioral information. Can credit scoring work in microfinance? History says it does. Starting around 2000s, Schreiner created a scorecard based in an assessment done by the credit officer or the loan officer. The loan officer will go to the home of the applicant and will see things like, does the applicant has a TV, does he have a car, how many children has, is it married or not, etc. However, it was difficult to maintain, as sometimes loan officers had to travel long distances. Later on, Van Gool and Blanco proved that micro enterprises can have some sort of data due to the performance that allows to predict if it's likely to default or not. However, this data cannot be translated for personal users, since a personal user will not have sales or inventory, etc. A more similar case to our case came around 2015 when Pedro created the MOBI score, which is a score on credit cards. It tends to predict if the user is going to default or not, but instead of loans, it will use credit cards, and it was mostly based on mobile data. This means number of SMS sent and received, as well as calls sent and received, the amount charged on the phone, etc. That same year, not at all, proved that Facebook data can be used to group defaulters and non-defaulters using data such as likes, posts, shares, etc. Most recently, our research has proved that microfinance institutions can predict quite accurate if a loan will go into default or not based on behavioral data. This is which apps do you have installed on your phones, how many SMS do you receive, what is your Android version, which phone do you have, etc. We received a dataset from a microfinance institution from the sub-Saharan region. The dataset had more than 30,000 applications. However, as most financial institutions, the ratio between good performing loans and bad performing loans was a 10-to-1. With that being said, we had to undersample the amount of good applications, and we ended up with a 3,000 cases dataset. This means around 1,500 cases and similar amount of bad cases. The dataset has had three main sources of information. As I said before, it's a digital lender, therefore they don't have physical presence to validate the information. All the data gathering is done through an application downloaded by the Play Store, which means the user have to have an Android device or a smartphone. After downloading the app, the user had to fill, or the applicant had to fill personal information such as age, gender, educational level, employment status, etc. The problem is that there is no way that the microfinance institution can validate this data and know if it's truth or not. Another more reliable source of data comes in the way of mobile network operator and device features. This data is validated by the nature itself of the features. The user cannot manipulate the logs of the phone Therefore, we can retrieve, after the permission of the user, features like number of calls, number of SMS, which device brand do you have, the latest mobile update, meaning the Android version of the device, the number of apps installed, and also we can know which apps the user has installed in their mobile phone. This means how many financial apps does the customer have, how many betting apps, how many games, etc. The last part comes from the loan characteristics. The user has to request a given loan amount, loan length, and loan reason. With these features, we created, through feature engineering, what we thought could be more relevant features, such as debt ratio. The debt ratio is no more than a financial load or an estimated financial load of the customer, dividing the amount that the user requests over the monthly income stated by the user. We also created the income split, which is the monthly income divided by the number of dependents stated by the user. This is the user itself plus 1 if it's married or not, plus the number of dependents. We created some delta features to track a bit of behavior, knowing if the user have an increased number of calls or SMS over the last 2 months. After having all these features and the 3000 instances, we decided to transform with the weight of evidence, similar to our previous research. The weight of evidence by itself is not a feature selection method but a transformation method. It uses the distribution inside a feature to know if the feature is good or not to predict the label. Let's focus on this example and let's take our attention to category B inside of feature X. As we can see, every customer that have B on the feature X is more likely to be good. As we see the distribution, we have 78 customers that perform well, opposed to 15 that perform bad for all the population that had B as an answer on feature X. Now, after the transformation is done, what is usually carried is the rules of information value. Introduced by Siddiqui in 2006, Siddiqui stated that when a feature have an information value lower than 0.2, then it have no relation with the label. However, if it's higher to 0.2, we can say that the feature on the evaluation have a relationship that can go from weak to strong. Going to the experimentation methodology, what we propose is to, instead of having the weight of evidence and later on the information value applied to the already transformed dataset, we will substitute the filtering by information value by other traditional feature selection methods, such as feature importance, extra twist, recursive feature elimination, or the lasso-based feature selection. What we did is that we then transformed the dataset with 3000 cases with the weight of evidence and split the dataset into training and testing, having 70% for training and 30% for testing. Instead of filtering right away with information value, we did the process 5 times. Each time we will have a different feature selection method different than the information value itself. We trained the logistic regression with the same parameters, just changing the feature selected by each method each time, and use train-fault cross-validation to test the performance. For evaluating the performance, we decided to test with the Kolmogorov-Smirnov and the area under the ROC curve, which are common evaluation metrics for classification problems. As we can see on the results, the information value not only was outperformed but was overall the worst, as opposed to the extra trees, which had the better performance overall, scoring first on the area under the rock and second in the Kolmogorov-Smirnov. It's good also to notice that the most relevant features, or the features that were commonly selected across the 5 methods, were the mobile network operator and device features. This is because these features cannot be manipulated by the user, and in our experience we have noticed that those features where the user can input any value, the user will tend to fill it with information that he believes will grant him a better score or a better evaluation. We can conclude that credit scoring can actually be useful in microfinance, and that non-traditional features can be created to predict the financial risk of an individual. However, we would like to test this performance and stress it a bit more by training a streaming algorithm and see how the performance of a feature varies through time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.